One of the best ways to prepare for mathematical conversations with our students is by anticipating students' thinking. When we try to imagine what our students might say, we prime ourselves to better hear, understand, and respond to their ideas. Let's look at this image of a three-dimensional figure made of cubes, where we ask, how many cubes are in this solid? And anticipate some of the many ways students might think about and answer that question. First, let's anticipate one particular challenge. Some students might perceive this question as asking how many cubes we can see. But this is a solid, it is not hollow, and we formed this question intentionally to try to support students in understanding that this figure is made of a solid set of cubes. The big challenge here is not just counting the cubes we can see, but imagining the cubes we cannot. So students need to decompose this image into some kind of smaller components so that they can count the pieces they can see and imagine those that they cannot. Some students might approach this as seeing it with a central tower that is flanked by two smaller pieces. They might then focus first on counting these smaller components. These two are equivalent. They're each 2 by 3 or 6 units apiece. And they might hold that off to the side in their mind of knowing that those two comprise 12 units that they can now disregard. If they can peel those pieces off mentally, what they might see behind is a solid that is not 2 layers, but 3 layers tall. Each of those layers is also 2 by 3. There are 1, 2, and then a hidden third one underneath. And if they perceive them that way, they might think 6, 6, and 6 for a total of 18. And that would allow them to see this central tower as 18, these two flanks as 6, or for a total of 12, and then there are 30 cubes altogether. Now, other students might decompose this image differently. They might see it as having a flat bottom and having an additional rectangular solid added to the top, the solid that we can see. In this case, they might see that this has 2 layers of 6 for a total of 12. Or they might decompose that image differently. They might not see the layers horizontally, but they might see the layers vertically. So they might see this plane here and then a plane hidden behind it. Again, each one with 6. Some students might instead slice this image vertically this way, seeing 4, 4, and 4, again for a total of 12 units in this component sitting on top. But then the next task is on top of what? Some students might remove this panel of 6 mentally and then see that behind it there is a long base that is 6 units long and 2 units wide for a total of 12 cubes. So if they've done that, they've got 12 on the top, 12 in this base, and 6 in this portion over here, again, for a total of 30 cubes. Other students might decompose that base differently, seeing again the 12 on the top, but then perceiving this as the base, with 6 extra out here and 12 here, again, for a total of 30. There are lots of ways students might slice these figures, vertically and horizontally in different directions, because it's a three-dimensional solid. And the goal is to have students to pull apart this image mentally so that they can see the components, count the pieces, and then reassemble them to see how many cubes there are. This is deep cognitive work that requires lots of spatial relations and visualization that students need to do while holding on to the components of each part, seeing the different sets of cubes and holding them mentally and then putting the pieces back together. This is a great task to ask students to do visually, but you may find that you want to provide this sheet for students and even cubes for them to construct the models and decompose physically so they can see those parts before they're ready to do it all mentally. We hope you'll give this kind of task a try with your students and see what are the creative ways that they decompose the image and figure out how many cubes are in this solid.